Hi everyone, it's Nat here. Hope you're all doing well. I'm so excited because it is that time of the year again and I am on for hashtag CreepOnJune24. It's a collaboration that is hosted by the lovely Tracie Fox, and she has put together the most amazing creators that are going to be putting up a video. There'll be one for each day for the month of June. And we will be using this awesome kit that Tracie has put together for us. Now, there is a backstory for this for the month, and that will be on Tracie's website. Heaps of fun and a little creepy too. So go and read that to get you in the mood and craft along with us. That would be great. Whether you want to follow along with what we're making each day or do something different for yourself, just make sure that you put it up in the Foxy Crafters Facebook group so we can see what you've been doing. So all the links will be down below for you. I'll have one to Tracie's website so that you can find the backstory. There'll also be one to the kit and all the papers that we'll be using. And there's also a link to the calendar, like previous Creep on June collaborations and her Christmas ones. She's doing a calendar, so you can click on the day to go to that person's YouTube for the day. So make sure you check out what everyone's doing. It's going to be heaps and heaps of fun. So my day is today, which is the 5th, and I thought before I go cutting bits up, I'll show you the pieces that I have printed out. So each of us who'll be putting up a video for the days have a element that we'll be using for the day. And for the 5th, this is my element, this awesome tag here. Absolutely love it. And there are a few other pieces here that we can use if we want to as well. And this little tag piece here actually goes along with the backstory. So I will be using that. I am pretty sure. I think that will be a lot of fun. So I'll be using that. And then there are background pages, Creep on June background pages. So I've printed out, I'll probably use this one, I think, but I did print out this one as well. I think there's about 15 background pages and they are beautiful. But I've just printed out a couple of those. And then there are piles of elements. So we are allowed to use whatever elements that we want to put our creation together. So I've printed out a few different bits and pieces out of the elements pages to show you. So it is the Curious Case of Craftly Hall. So do read the backstory, because the elements and all that sort of go along with that, and I think it would be so much fun to make a journal based on these bits and pieces. So I've printed out a few of the pages, not all of them. So what I've done is printed two to a page for some of these because I wanted smaller elements. So we've got some creepy skeleton people. Printed out the frames. They are so cool. So obviously a lot of these you could use in other projects in the future as well. Printed out this page. I think this will go really well with this story that's on my tag piece. It's got these awesome keys too. I was going to use them, but I'm looking at them thinking, I don't know if I want to fussy cut out these little bits, and that's why I have printed out this one as well, because I might be lazy and cut these ones out. We will see how I go with that. This has like a grounds map and a title deed. I love the spooky house picture. And then I've got another page of skeleton people. And then I've got this one, which is full size, but then I realised that will probably be too big for what I want to do with it. So I printed out the smaller ones. But of course I can use these for other things in the future. And then I did smaller ones of these as well. So I've got options there because I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. So I thought I'd print out different sizes so that I know I've got what I need. So they're the bits and pieces that I've printed out, but there's heaps more in the kit for you to go and check out. It'd be lovely to see what everyone makes. It is so much fun, and a massive thank you to Tracie for inviting me to be a part of it. So I'm just cutting out some of the elements that I want to use for my tag, cutting out my 2 keys, the little story plate there, and that green tag. So I have my day's tags here and I am fussy cutting them out. I do want to do separate tags with these, so I will cut them in half down the middle there once I've finished cutting around them. So I'm jumping back and forth to get all the pieces prepped before I put them together. I'm just using my craft knife and my cutting mat to cut down the middle of the tags. It's very hard to cover these tags up because I love the pattern. So before I go further, I will ink. I'm using my black Soot Distress ink to go around the edges of my tags. Now I want to do some heat embossing. I have this Lindy's embossing powder there. It's a bit chunky. It's sort of a black and silver powder. So I tried using my Distress marking embossing pen thing. The powder didn't stick to it too well, so I just sort of brushed it off and thought I might try with some of the smaller elements first. I haven't used these pens much before, so I'm trying to get used to them. I do find as I'm using it here that it gets a bit juicier, so I think it will work better for me now. So I'm just putting some of the embossing powder over the darker bits on this little tag. I thought the heat embossing would be good because we'll still be able to see the picture underneath and all the writing and everything, but it will just add that little bit of texture and shine. I don't want to cover up any of Tracie's beautiful work. So you can see there it's just like this powdery coating on there at this point. So I'm going to repeat that process with some of the darker lines on my keys as well. So that pen is a good way of just getting little bits embossed. I'm not sure how long it stays wet for, so I'm just doing it little bit by little bit, which was a little time consuming, but as I'm just doing little bits and pieces, I figured it will probably dry pretty quick, so I want to get the powder on. So I'm running down that line again now to see if it's going to hold a bit more of the powder on. I don't want it real thick anyway. I don't want a real thick border. I don't want it to be solid. So I repeat that process with both of my tags. Heat up my heat gun, and then I can melt the powder on my embossing. So I didn't cut all the blank paper off of these. I wanted to leave a bit for me to be able to hold them so I don't burn my fingers during this process. So you can see it almost melts away on the tags, but there is still this like real subtle coating and a bit of glimmer in some areas around the edges. So I'll just show you here. I love the way that turned out. And then as you can see, it's very subtle on the edge of the tags. So now I can cut a bit more of the whites off. I do like leaving a bit of a border on when I'm sticking it to a background to fussy cut. It helps me get the glue to the edges where I need it. So I'm using my tacky glue here to back all of my pieces onto this. It's a dark grey green cardstock. I thought that would look good. Just makes all the pieces a bit more solid. So again, I stick both my tags down. Now I'm cutting out some more of the elements. I've got the little green tag that was on my tag day. And I'm cutting out the picture of the binders. The title deed to the house. And that spooky house tag. Love that. And then I chose one of the frames that I'd like to use as well. Also rough cutting out some of my skeletons, and then the smaller copy that I printed of the grounds of the house. So I cut out a few different skeletons just so I could see which one was going to fit where. Now I want to cut out the centre of my frame so that we can see our people underneath. I am cutting a bit of the inner frame out just so there's more room to see the binders under there. I actually started making this before the information was released, so I am glad that they are the right people that I am using. Although I don't think there were many other people other than skeleton ones, so couldn't really get it wrong. So again, I'm doing a bit of heat embossing on the frame. I'm just going around the lines on the inside of the frame, and then I will also just do some little highlights around the darker pieces on the outer frame. And then of course I will heat emboss that as well. Which I don't think I show you because you've seen it once, you don't need to see it again. Just inking on the inside of my frame. Now, of course, if you don't do your heat embossing or you don't have any of the items needed for it, you could just use some glitter pen or do highlights in some other manner, or just leave it as is. It's a beautiful frame. So now I've got some transparency film there, and I'm using my alcohol ink blending solution and some of my alcohol ink. I think it's teak coloured. And I'm just moving that around on my transparency to create a window for my frame. I always go too far with my blender and make a big mess of it, but once I put it over the photo, it actually still looks really good. I'm just adding some drops. And then I use the lid of the alcohol ink, get some ink on that and just splodge that around the place just to get a few interesting marks on there. So I've left a little white border around my photo, and that's where I'm applying my glue to stick my transparency to. That way I don't have to put any on the actual photo. Position the transparency where I want it, and then fussy cut the photo out. Now I want to back my photo piece onto some more of my grey cardstock. When I first stick it down, I don't leave any room for my frame. So then I have to pull it back up, reapply the glue, and then stick it down, leaving some room to put my frame down over the top. So again, I've left some white borders around it, just helps me get the glue to the edges, and then I'll fussy cut it out after the glue's dried. Now I want to use the background paper that I chose to cover the other side of my tags, but I don't want to stick it down permanently yet. So I'm just folding over some washi tape and putting that on the back of my tags. That will enable me to stick them down to the background paper and cut the shape of the tags out and then remove them again. I'm just making a note and numbering my tags 1 and 2, and when I cut the tag shape of the background paper, I will label that for the corresponding tag as well, just to make sure it's a snug fit. And when I go to put them together, I will know which one goes with what. Just cutting around the tag shape there. And as you can see, it peels off really easily due to the washi tape. So I will ink around the edges of these tag pieces as well. Now I have the title deed piece that I cut out there, and I want to put that on the background pieces that we just cut out. So I'm just ripping it down the middle, and then I'll go and fussy cut that out in my frame, which I'm showing you here. It's all nice and glistening from my embossing. Just inking around with black soot again around the frame. And then I use a brown ink to go around the title deed since it has the brown stains on it already. My little note there telling me how many pages are in which kit. So ink around my key as well. Making sure I get some ink in all the little nooks and crannies there. And then I'm ready to stick my key together. So it'll be nice and sturdy since I backed both pieces onto the cardstock. My fussy cutting must have been pretty good because it went together really nicely too, which doesn't happen very often. So now I'm backing the tag that has the house picture on to the grey cardstock as well. And then the green tag that was on my day page. Now that's the half size map of the grounds that I'll be using, so I had to fussy cut that out as well. So I've cut some of my grey cardstock here, some of the scrap bits, and I'm making hinges with those. So they're about maybe 2 inches long by 1.5 inches wide. Then I just scored them at the halfway point and folded them over to create my hinges, and that's what's going to join our 2 main tags together. So I want to add glue to one side and stick it down on this back tag. And then I will add glue to the other side of the hinge there and put the top tag on top. And that will enable our tag book thing to open and close. That's why I didn't add the background papers to the inside yet, because I want the hinge to be hidden underneath those. So I put the top tag on top and just make sure that the edges sort of meet up together and that it opens freely. You might want to leave like a millimetre between the tags just to make sure it opens up. So now I can stick down the background parts, and because I've numbered them, I know which one goes on top of what. And I try to make sure it lines up more to the outside of the tag than the inside where the fold is. If it's too close there, it's going to bunch up when we go to fold our tag closed. So I try to concentrate on getting it flush to the outer. And then, of course, just trim any overhang that you have off. So that's the inside of our tag. Now we can add our title deed that we ripped in half. So I'm keeping it quite plain in here because I want it to shut nice and flat. Also, this title deed has room on there that you can write on if you did want a journal on this tag. So now we've got the tag that we're going to add to the back, and it's the haunted house there. I'm just adding some of my black soot ink just down the bottom there because I think it will help my skeletal people stand out a bit more. Every time I look at that, I giggle. I don't know why. It's meant to be creepy, but every time I look at it, I giggle at them standing there in front of the house. Love it. So I just stick them down there. Ink around the edges. Then looking at it on the back, it's sort of, I just like to see some of the pattern on the back. So I decide to cut the top bit off of the tag. Then we can see more of the background. So again, I have to ink up more now that I've cut that off. So with this tag piece, we are going to stick down the map of the grounds. To create a journal card, I decided that will slip under the haunted house tag piece on the back of our tag. I was changing my mind the whole way along making this, so that's why it's a bit all over the place, because that's the way my mind is. So I cut this tag down just to make a nice little journal card. No strict measurements, just what was pleasing to my eye. So ink around it. Then I realised that I think it would be better if I snip a little bit off of the sides. I think I cut some more off of one of the ends too, so I've got to keep re-inking every time I cut. I corner around and ink just to finish that off. So then I decide to do the heat embossing around the edges of that piece as well. Now I want to cut some strips out of my card stock to elevate this piece so we can slip our journal card underneath. So they're about 1 centimetre wide strips, and they're the length of the width of our tag piece that we're sticking down. So I've cut 4 of those strips. I'm going to stick 2 of them together for the top of our tag piece and then the other 2 together for the bottom. And that will just lift it up enough that we can slip our journal card under. So you want to make sure that these fit on the top and the bottom, and there's still room to slip the journal card in and out before you stick it down, or else you'll have to cut your journal card down even more and ink again. So I cut them just a little long, so I'm just trimming them down to fit. You can see there that my journal card will slip under nicely. Then I'm raiding my lace scrap bin, and I found this bit of black lace that I thought would go nice before we stick down the little top part there. So I just add glue along the strips that we attached to this piece. And then I can stick that down. Grab my crocodile and I'm just punching small holes through both tags in case I want to add a closure to it. And adding some eyelets. These eyelets didn't work too well, which was unfortunate, but they're in there. And then I use my signature move, which is bashing them down with my crocodile to try and flatten them out a bit more. Be thankful the sound is off. And then I use the little hole again to put a hole in the top of that little story tag and my key so that I can dangle those. Then I hunt through more of my scrap lacy pieces. These are pieces from a lady's shirt that I have hanging around, and I really like the grey with the other colours that are on this project, so I thought I would use that random piece. I can then stick my frame down. And then I have this other little bit hanging around that I thought would go nicely on the bottom there. So now we better decorate the back a little. So I went through 100 pieces of black lace to see what would fit, but I did opt for that little flower in the end. So I find another piece to use as a tab for my little journal card. Just make it a lot easier to get it in and out its little hiding spot. Now it's time to finish off and put the tag together. So I did do a few finishing touches last night. I decided to sew around the edges of my tags. Initially I wasn't going to do that because I did the embossing around the edges, but in looking at it I thought the sewing would set it off really nicely, which it has. I still could manage to sew. I hadn't stuck too much stuff on that made it too difficult to do that, but I do suggest if you want to sew around yours, maybe do it before you put all the other embellishments on. Might make it a bit easier. And I also just found 2 more of the skeleton people to stick on the inside with the title deed here. So you can see my stitching there. I just went straight stitch around the outside of both of the tags. I also did stitch on my journaling card. Again, just straight stitch, which will help hold on the little tab that we put on. So put that back in. Now, we did put the eyelets in, and I did an eyelet in both tags so that if we wanted to, we could tie our tag closed. So I've got a bit of ribbon here that we can do that with, but what I think I might do is, first we'll put our key on. And then our little tag with our story. And then I'm just going to thread those through the top tag's eyelet. So as I said, if you wanted to, you could then thread it through the second one and then tie your knot, and it would keep your tag closed. And you could do a double knot here if you wanted to, just to hold the tag on well. But I'm just going to do a loose single knot and a bow. And you can cut the tails down if you want, but I'll probably just try and neaten it up a bit afterwards. And that's how I would put the tag together. And I really loved making that. It was heaps and heaps of fun. I hope you enjoyed it too and that you give it a go. I love the sparkly sheen of the embossing. It just adds that nice texture to some of the elements. So if you put the tags on just in the one hole, you can obviously still open and close your tag. Whereas if you tie them together, you'd have to undo the bow to be able to open and close your tag. And then we've got the journal card in the back. So that was so much fun. Now, Tracie has put out a few videos introducing Creep on June. If you want to go back and check them out, the link to her channel is down below. She also did a tutorial on how to put together a folder, and she has given us some freebies in the members area of her website that you can use to embellish your folder, and there's also a printout of the story there. So you can go and check that out. There is also a link to the calendar, so you can click on the days to go straight to the people who are participating, and on their day there'll be a link direct to their video for the day. In Tracie's Etsy, which is Love Junk Journals, there is the Creep on June element kit, and there's also a separate kit with backgrounds which are absolutely beautiful. I used one of the background pages here. So if you do create anything for Creep on June, we'd all love to see it. So do make sure you add the hashtag CreepOnJune24, whether it be on your Insta, your YouTube, or your Facebook. So do take care and keep on creeping on.